And as I said before, things aren't as severe in children as in adults, but we still need to do orthopedic evaluations and to determine the parents to seek the help of a specialized orthopedic surgeon in order to correct the foot deformities and in order to make the progression of the disease not so severe. Apart from that, physiotherapy is a main point we try to focus on, and we try to encourage them to be a part of the rehabilitation program in order to delay the progression of the deformities, to increase the tolerability of certain positions, and to maintain and sustain the mobility. When talking about registries, we have a lack of them in all neuromuscular disease. What we are trying to do now is create a registry for the SMA patients and for DMD patients, and I hope CMT is coming very strong because now we have there are certain intentions. We have an intention from adult neurologist who is very passionate about neuromuscular disease, but the idea of how to do it is very unclear because we don't have any experience. So I think being part of ERN and being part of association that know more about this and could help us with what data we should enter, who should create and who should participate in creation of the registries. And here we most definitely needed the help of the patients and the associations in order to have their data and to know how much data we need for the registry to not be only for having a registry, but to really help in having important data for the upcoming trials and upcoming opportunities. When talking about the patients, we talk about patients and their families and the need to feel like they belong to a community, to be very well attending from a psychological point of view, to know the disease, to have them be informed, and to have national representations, to be a part of this kind of events in order for them to know about their disease, to know what they are supposed to do, and to be ready for the new clinical trials that it can start. And they can be part of. Another suggestion I would like to make is I know the application CMT and Me, and I think what would be important for our communities is to be a part of the CMT and Me application, or some kind of application that is similar to this, because now it's not available in Romania, and I think it would be very important for the patients to have a list they can check, and for us to evaluate better and to know how the quality of life of the patients can be improved. And of course, we at the hospital, the neurological department, started an association of our own, and we started to organize events in association with the patients' organizations. And I think this kind of events are very important for the awareness of the disease. As I said before, in Romania, we don't have registries, and we don't. Authorities are not very keen on implementing the registries. And I think that every opportunity we get to raise awareness and to to tell the world about the new opportunities and the new upcoming research is very important. And as the saying goes, together we are stronger, and indeed we are stronger, because just being part today in this event and learning all the things I've learned about research, about trials, about how we can, how it's important to think about registries, how it's important to know how many patients are there, what mutations are prepared to enter new clinical trials. I think it's very true that together we are stronger, and together we can increase the community's quality of life, and eventually reach treatments they can have. Thank you. Yeah.
Just ask for the CMT.
It's an it's an app that's developed to evaluate certain points of the neurological evaluation, quality of life, physical activity, and so on. And the doctor can have access to this information, and it's like an evaluation. As I see it, I didn't use the app, that's why I mentioned it.
I can answer that. Catherine Forster from the Charcot-Marie-Tooth Association. So the CMT and the apps help for the Pharnex as part of their effort in CMT money. It covers all CMT types. They have a selection of validated questionnaires around different patient-reported data. A whole range of pain, functional outcome questions. And then I'm on the steering group in the background, and there's different representatives from different groups who can be on that group, and you get access to a dashboard, and you can see the data by country, by CMT type, by results. So it's really helpful. My question for you is, have you asked them? Because they've added, I think there's 5 countries on the CMT and the app so far. So they're a really open team.
Okay, so I'll
say,
make this initiative.
You're joining, and they might say, yes, it will cost this much money. And therefore we go, okay, that's our fundraising goal. Because it'll, and then when you look on the dashboard, you can see data for your country if you want to see it especially, so you'll be able to pull that out and then compare it to other data.
Yeah, good. I will do that.
They data use request through the committee, so researchers can access that data. They're giving a presentation recently for the UK. Mario Supporter is on one of the clinician scientists who's on their panel. He gives a great presentation about how they. So yeah, you can make data. And just the patient connects themselves, like, do they have to check that they have CMT just self-reported?
Is there any issue with the fact that it's a pharma company app? I mean,
you don't notice it. Like I know.
Not us as patients, but I mean, if the data flies there and it sits in their committee, isn't it kind of?
It's funded separately. So the CMT and MIAP is a separate independent, it's like they commission them to run their surveys, and the CMT and MIAP team Right Access is the organisation. They hold the data. So it's only anonymized data that's presented.
And so if I'm in addiction pharma,
not as far as I'm aware.
That's the issue with it. That's why Israel decided not to open it, although we think it's really good and useful.
That's what question.
You can sit down with Right Access and because more countries are joined and they're longitudinal as well, so they prompt you to like every month fill it in. So I can access all the data. And you can make data use requests to
anonymously, but
yes.
But what happens?
I can never
behind
see
the
I can never see
the phone. Yeah,
it's all protected. And I've never, as a patient user, I've never had an email from Pharnex.
No,
you know, saying
money.
Yes, they funded by the access as well. Well, I'm sure they'll get all the data use reports and then
use it.
They're publishing as well.
Okay.
So it's published. So they make publications.
Okay, okay.
It's been interesting.
So the last just one question to the association. I have some patients on CMT, really CMT, but some hereditary neuropathy with sensory and anatomic neuropathy, some different from CMT, and they ask me, it's not CMT, can we join the group of CMT, you know, because your name is CMT Association. It's not.
No, it's Neuropathy Associated. Federation, you know?
Yeah. It's not, you know, it's not written CMT and I don't know.
In most of the cases, in neuropathy,
Why should sense? I mean, they're all the some sensory.
Yeah, but you know, not recognize the symptoms of other patients in CMT, you know. Yeah, they know. I should say, they recognize the symptoms, similar. Yeah, sensory autonomic neuropathy, they do not recognize clearly. They say it's not my symptoms clearly. They're searching for the association, like, but I think it's a very rare disease. So they're just searching patients, you know, through Facebook or through.
I mean, the idea is CMT related.
Yeah,
that's why we have the special interest group, and they should all be included because it's all genetic.
Perhaps change the name, you know.
No, it's just straightforward. But anyway, well, what the federation is it's just a federation of association orbitate into the CMT world. Actually, for instance, Dutch association are not CMT or Belgium association are not CMT specific. So we do many anyone, and it depends what the national associations include in the members.
Yeah. It's CMT front. This is CMT patient and neuropathy associated.
Yeah.
So it's not only CMT. It's possible to be in CMT funds and so in CMT federation by CMT funds.
And one last question. My patients also ask about compass. Those who have only peripheral neuropathy, not inclusive. They also do not recognize if I can go there. No? Because the symptoms are also different, and they're also searching for the fixation for their disease because there are not so many rare, you know, now. So I think there is something to do in between there, you know, because some of the patients do not know where they stand, where they have to join, you know. So it's difficult because when you think about small neuropathy, small fiber neuropathy, it's not really the same, you know, as CMT. So I don't know.
Maybe the CMT associations can raise a little bit awareness of other
Yes.
you know, similar forms that may not have the typical phenotype or maybe but to me they're all part of the same.
That no patients do not recognize the symptoms because
I think inclusivity is a challenge in lots of different facets of medicine, and where a patient sees themselves, it is really important.
yeah.
But at the same time, naming of an organisation in Muscular Dystrophy Association covers all. But I don't feel like I have muscular dystrophy even though I have CMT.
No, it's different.
But they include all, and I don't include all. So before I know your name, yes.
On the other hand, I mean, in our Ministry of Health, to get some disability benefits, you have to have muscular dystrophy. CMT, they don't know. So I'm forced to say that patients have muscular dystrophy because if I say CMT, they don't get anything.
Name?
Although they're equally disabled. So I mean, you just have an overview because it's useful sometimes. And
No, I think patients will have the right for. No, I won't like to say the patient that he has muscular dystrophy instead of CMT because they're clever, so they know that's not the same, you know. So clearly.
the end result is disability.
Share with them that they might not have CMT, but they will.
No,
gain
just
the
that
support
I
available
read
from
that because
groups.
I've had some questions on my patients. Where am I? Where am I? You know, where not I do not recognize the symptoms of CMT or classical CMT. So just you know, maybe something that put around. Is
it time for one more question?
We have 8 more minutes for one question if you would like to, because it's half an hour for each.
You mentioned that you were developing registries and you said you're going to have one for SMA and one for PMD. And my immediate question that came into my mind was co-creation. So the MDA has a registry and they have 5 different diseases. They come with the same approach, the same platform. There may be some different questions, but if they're broadly under neuromuscular diseases.
Yes, this is the idea, but it all started with SMA because we're trying to do the neonatal screening, and for the neonatal screening, we really need a registry.
Yes.
And this was the starting point of talking about registries, and it's been a talk for years now, and I think this problem of this issue of neonatal screening has reason the necessity to have the registries not only in SMA but all the rare disease, and to make one that is neuromuscular, and to have all the important data, because we don't want to do our own national registry and then be part of another European registry and essentially make the work double.
I think my only advice would be lots of groups start in that way. There's a particular reason why one registry was started. And it might be because there's been funding for that, or like if you say the neonatal need, is to, when you build it in a way that it could be expanded, so your effort is saved. But also to think that IMC, Inherited Neuronal Consortium, has been mentioned several times, with 20 sites globally, they have a system through which you can be an adjunct site and still send in the information so that you can be part of that board of clinical registry. That's just a CMT, might be a different system. That's one approach. And even if you're not sending it in, there can be an approach to have a core question set, so that they might exist separately, meet everybody's data ranks, but have a core question set. So we need to.
Yeah, that was the question. We need to have something that goes.
Just to, can anyone join in? No, exactly. So the Inherited Neuronal Consortium currently has 20 sites. The reason for that is not because of attitude, it's because of they have 3 5-year funding cycles and they're just coming towards the end of the cycle. So I didn't feel it was worthwhile to say, well, more people join when they're currently planning what could
the registry will be maintained.
Yes.
So we could tap onto the registry.
I have seen my child tell sites that are not in IMC, if they contact a nearest IMC site, there would be a way for them to join the registry.
Then we have the Royal Francis so strict with their data that we can't send data.
Well, that's where I wonder about core question set. Maintain it separately, but have the same.
And one of the things that happens now is that basically governments are trying to structure, standardize the data.
Yeah.
So now we have, so I'm talking about Israel, but I know it's a global thing, right? So we have fire data, OMOP data, those kind of data sets. And then when the data is standardized, even though if you go with different platforms, you have a technology that can basically connect it. So for you, you have to put CMT, because if you don't put CMT, then no one knows that those patients are CMT patients, even though they're.
That's not the registered.
No.
Yeah,
So I'm saying if the registry is happening, we have to make sure that standardized the registries are being held while the others are being opened at the same level qualitatively and also in a way that can fly between each other. And then you don't need to use the same platform. You can just speak to one another.
So you have the information. Do you have the list of what's in the registries for the CMT that they available? What in terms of the IMC?
The data that they use.
We don't have, so we're now in discussions. One of the things that we wanted to understand is what's existing, which one is already progressed. Can we align before we kick off, because we want to make it strategic and not tactic.
Yeah, and I think that's worthwhile doing because that's a 15-year longevity organization with 20 sites. Several of those sites are in Europe, so they've already overcome the hurdles of how we ask the questions in multiple languages, how we record it, how different sites feed in. So even if you're maintaining a separate set, there's the potential there for it to be together. And they have a core way of assessing through clinical outcome measures and training in how to do that. So that's standardized too. So I would just say what's out there is well established. So where you can learn from that and build on it, because lots of years and millions have gone into creating it. So make use of it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're in the second presentation. Tanya?
I think it's you, right? Yeah, it's Club. Yeah, so the moderation and not the presenter.
How do we find the presentation? I don't see anything here. I just see the Zoom recording. I don't see anything else. Yeah, so anyway, good morning. I'm Cleopas Kleopa. I'm from the Cyprus Institute of Neurology and Genetics in Cyprus. I will, in my presentation, I tried to express some suggestions, some ideas, some points more for stimulating discussion that are more general for how to mobilize patients. And then I included also a more specific example of what we're trying to do with a particular CMT type that I think it's a good model for other, mainly the ultra rare ones. I mean, we know that most effort is centered on CMT1A in terms of also natural history study and developing sensitive outcome measures and biomarkers. So I think we need to find a way to cover also other CMT types. Yes. Okay, right. Thank you. Okay. So so my talk is about mobilizing patients to promote active participation and to advance research and treatment for the disease. So why do we need patients to take active roles? Obviously, patients need to take active roles to raise public awareness, to find solutions for their own special needs. I think they are the best advocates and the biggest force driving the whole field. We need more patients to join advocacy organizations because some of these diseases are really rare. So every patient really counts. And we see that with some of the ultra rare ones, even more prominently. We need to advocate also to industry. And from my experience in the last 4 years talking to industry about CMT treatments, it's very important for them to know what is the market, what is the number of patients, whether the patients are reachable, where we know we have a registry, we have an idea of where the patients are located. So for some of the CMT types, the motivation from industry is very low, just because of market reasons. And so mobilizing the patients, knowing the patients is very important to have any chance for moving some of the treatments forward. Obviously, what we experience here is an example of cooperation with scientists, clinicians, and therapists. We need all of these stakeholders because each group will provide a separate aspect to the problem, and it's necessary to have a collaboration. We need direct involvement of patients in order to make possible natural history studies. Natural history studies are necessary. We don't have them for any of the CMT. There is only one for CMT1A right now that is ongoing, and otherwise is lacking for all other CMT types. But it's
exactly, because I know
The ACT CMT is within the 5 INC centers, so that's US and Europe.
I'm going for 1A, 1B, 1X, 2A, and 2F that the CMT are funding at the moment.
Okay,
So
well, I'm very good.
look,
Okay, and what does that natural history include? I mean, does it include MRI and all the sensitive outcome measures?
history biomarkers following the same approach as the ACT CMT. So it's comprehensive.
Great, so you're ahead of me. Okay, so and the final point is about the patient data. So we already discussed it, and obviously patient data should belong to patients. And as Mary emphasized yesterday, I believe they should be available to everybody who wants to do something for the disease. They should not be academically limited. They should not be commercially limited. They should not be ascribed to companies or just, be not available because of someone needs to publish a paper. So at some point, we need to talk openly about data sharing and how to make them uniform. And I will come back to this because there are many efforts to generate data and many registries, but we have to also make them compatible. Okay, so it's only by mobilizing the patients and combining the patient own experience and motivation, of course, which is the driving force with all the expertise that we have from clinicians and researchers that we can address the challenges. So these are some suggestions how to improve patient mobilization and how to empower patients. So one of the key aspects, of course, is to have patient representation in the governance of the CMT research ecosystem. So that includes, the funding bodies. And I mean, we all know that currently most of the funding for CMT research comes actually from patient associations. So they already have a say, but I think it's important for them to have a say in which direction of research is relevant to them, which is the most promising, what is the most suitable for addressing their needs. So that's important. We need to promote best practice, reusing and extending existing resources. So that includes databases, includes biobanks, includes natural history data, outcome measure tools. And we have, of course, the INC and the effort at the European reference networks for registries. We also need effective patient partnerships enabled through dedicated and sustainable funding of the organization. So the organizations themselves need to be supported to play that role. And we need engagement of patients in all stages of research, from designing, strategic decision, making about the priority areas in research, planning of research, decision-making on the allocation of funding, and then monitoring the implementation and dissemination of project results, because I believe that this will make the research more relevant, it will make it more useful and more applicable at the end. We also need to train patients. Patients, in order to do that, they need to be trained. They need to be on a continuous basis. So we need informed engagement of patients. We need them to lobby in the regulatory environment. So even if we have a successful research, then we have to pass the regulatory stage, and that the role of patients there is also very important to get treatments approved. And now we have examples of approved treatments that are not available to patients for some other diseases, for example, leukodystrophy. So even after we get to an approved treatment, doesn't mean that the patients will have it. We have many other policy issues and financial issues that we need to address. And importantly, we always have to feed back the research results to the patients. Otherwise, they will not really support the research. They will not understand the progress of research. So this is another important step. So my vision, my dream is to have a global mobilization of CMT patients. So we need a global scale of CMT networking. For some of the CMT types, this is sine qua non. So, I mean, if you have 50 patients worldwide and you don't get them together, you won't be able to achieve much for that CMT type. So I put here, first of all, the patient groups. We all know the patient groups. So we have the European CMT Federation, we have the CMT Association with a long, very active role. We have recently also CMTRF. We have national associations in Europe. We have some CMT type focus group. There's some for mydifusing, there are some for other types. And we probably have several associations that we are not really communicating much with in other countries beyond Europe and the US. So we need to get them all together. And I think the European CMT Federation should take a more leading role in this. Very important stakeholder here are the clinical experts and the referral centers, because first of all, they generate the data, they fit the registries, they know the patients, and they develop the natural history studies. And later on, they will be the treatment trial sites. So this is a very crucial part of the ecosystem that needs to be in continuous communication also with the patient groups. We have the CMT researchers, and we need them because we don't understand everything about CMTs yet, not about all of them. We have still unidentified genes. We still don't have treatments. We need to develop treatments at the preclinical level. So this is a very important part of the network. And we do need industry. Without industry, most of the time we cannot get the treatments to the clinic. So involving industry is very important. And here it's important also to try and capitalize on established platforms. So established delivery methods, established drugs, established safety testing. So this is what we call platform therapies. So use one treatment that targets one type of cell for other CMT types. This will reduce the cost for industry, will reduce the risk, and will accelerate the treatment for other CMT types that otherwise will be an orphan and nobody will be interested in developing a treatment. And also trial design. For companies, it's very important to know how I'm going to run a clinical trial once I license in this product. Is there going to be a clear outcome measure? So they need to have a very clear idea, what is the natural history study, what is my patient population, and how can I run a successful clinical trial? This is always the question we get from the companies, and if you don't have a good answer, they will walk away because it's a very high risk otherwise. And of course, we need the regulatory authorities. So at the end of the cycle, we need EMA and FDA, and even at the national level, people to approve and pay for the treatment. So this is all part of the cycle. So now I will make a small detour and talk about a particular CMT type that we're trying to develop a gene therapy for. It's CMT4C. It's an example of a rare, but maybe not so rare CMT type. We actually develop treatments for more common types for CMT1A and CMT1X. But I selected this one because I think this is very illustrative of how important it is to mobilize patients. So CMT4C is an autosomal recessive demyelinating neuropathy. It has a childhood onset, is more progressive than the CMT1 types, and is caused by a loss of function mutations in SH3 TC2 protein, which is expressed in Schwann cells, and that causes dysregulation of myelin and hypomyelination. And so the idea here is to replace the gene in Schwann cells. So for this, we developed a gene therapy approach where we deliver the SH3 TC2 gene under a Schwann cell specific promoter that we had to design in a minimal version, and then delivered it with the adeno-associated viral vector 9, which is also used for SMA, and we use it for other CMT types right now. We demonstrated in the model of the disease that we can replace the protein in myelinating Schwann cells in a high percentage of the cells. And then when we treated the mice, you see here, these mice have very early phenotype. They get hypomyelination, abnormal nodes of Ranvier already at postnatal day 8. And at 1 month of age, we treated them at 1 month and at 4 months of age, both early and late. And this is just the late treatment results. And you can see several motor behavioral tests show improvement in the mobility of the hind limbs. This is a mock-treated animal which cannot extend the hind limbs. Performance on the rotor rod and the muscle strength and the conduction velocities and the CMAPs are all improved after treatment. And we also see improvements in myelination in the lumbar roots. Here, these are the motor lumbar roots. We see thicker myelin sheaths, improvement of G ratios, and also in the more distal femoral motor nerves, we see improvement of myelination. So these are mice that receive the treatment by lumbar intrathecal injection. We also see improvement in the nodal pathology. These patients have elongated nodes of Ranvier, which contributes to the slowing of the conduction velocity and the nerve dysfunction. And the mouse model has the same problem. This is a normal mouse. This is the mouse model of the disease. And we see that the nodes become back to the normal length after treatment, as opposed to the untreated ones. So what is the path forward for CMT4C now? So we have proof of concept that we may have a treatment that could address the disease. We have the right design because we know the disease mechanism. So it's a classic loss of function disease. We need to replace the gene. So we optimize the clinical gene vector. We now use a human promoter to drive the expression of the human gene. We actually now performed also a dose escalation study and safety study in the mouse. So we are progressing with the preclinical development up to the mouse model. But of course, we need a natural history study, which is lacking. We need scale-up demonstration in bigger animals. So no company will come and support this program unless they know that it works in primates, that you can get the vector to the nerve and it's safe as well. So that's an important step. And then down the road, we will need the clinical trial, which again is based on having a natural history study. And there are trial designs for very rare CMT forms that we can discuss as well. So are we ready for clinical trials in this CMT type? And the answer is no. So what we have is, of course, cross-sectional data from many patients. 167 patients were published until recently. There is a progression with age, but this is cross-sectional. So we didn't have longitudinal. And we also have very, the basic skills, the CMT examination score that we heard about yesterday. We need more sensitive outcome measures. We need to include, for example, more comprehensive clinical evaluation tools, patient-reported outcomes, and of course, the MRI, which is the most sensitive biomarker. Just recently, there was a bigger cohort published for CMT4C by David Herman's group, which included 56 patients showing similar cross-sectional data on the left, and on the right, for the first time, we see longitudinal data in a subset of patients that show progression, but still the progression within 2 years is relatively small. So that's going to be challenging for demonstrating effect of treatment. So we do need more dedicated natural history study for this disease. And of course, biomarkers, especially MRI, have been established for CMT1A. There is now work that is almost completed for CMT1X, but we don't have for CMT4C, and that's also going to be very important. And also blood biomarkers. We have seen in the model that neurofilament light levels are elevated and improve with treatment, but we don't know in patients if that's a long-term reliable biomarker. We need more blood biomarkers. So what we're doing in terms of mobilizing patients, because patients want to have a treatment and they want to have support for their disease, they, after discussing and talking about our research results, the patients took the initiative to establish a CMT4C task force. So that's a group of families that are affected by the disease. The first goal is to engage the families, and these families are everywhere. I mean, US, Europe, Latin America. I mean, I communicate with families from all over the world. So they want to plan regular meetings. They want to discuss about their disease. They use social media to reach out they have a goal to increase attendance as time goes by. They want to connect with research, of course. So they want to have a direct knowledge of what's going on with research. What can we do to support research? One of the main goals is the natural history study. So right now we're planning a grant application to run a natural history study, and patients will be, of course, the main players here, removing patient-side barriers. So wherever the patient is, should be able to be included and to support the preclinical research that needs to be done. And so the natural history study is something that will be submitted to CMTA, and hopefully that will be successful. And at the same time, they understand the importance of fundraising. So they are now getting organized to fundraise at the more global scale, but also locally. So families take initiative to fundraise in their own environment. So this is the idea for the natural history study. We need at least 60 patients to have a very detailed evaluation, because this is very costly to have the MRIs and all the outcome measures. So with David Herman in Rochester, we came up with this suggestion to include 60 patients in a dedicated natural history study that will give us the basis, hopefully, for future clinical trials. And at the same time, we believe it's very important to have a global registry. Just because it's a very rare disease, we need to know all patients that we can reach and have at least the demographics, so minimal set of information. And some of this is included in INC and in ERN and other registries already. So the only way we can use it for a particular disease is to have a disease-focused registry. It's not useful if you have it spread out in different databases. So that's clear, and we can discuss it. So I'm closing with a conclusion. So we have exciting new treatments. That was just an example, but there are many on the horizon. Some of them are already in clinical trials. We need important stakeholders to be successful. So we need the patient groups to take leadership, to advocate, to get together the clinicians, scientists, and industry. We need the natural history studies. It's clear that without that, we cannot proceed. We need to develop biomarkers. The patient role is really crucial and leading in this effort. It's important to recruit scientists, to keep them in the CMT field, because we heard already that it's tough without funding. So we need to advocate for research to keep these people in the CMT field, both clinical and basic. We heard some amazing presentations in the poster session. I mean, there is a lot of talent, there is a lot of motivation, but we need to give these people also the path to complete their work. And without funding, this will not be possible. And we need to plan future trials by using the right outcome measures, because if we plan a trial with the wrong outcome measures, without enough power, we will likely fail, and that will set back the whole field. So it's very important for clinical trials to be very carefully planned and prioritized. And the final point I already made before is the platform-based therapeutics. So to utilize established platforms for several types, because that will be the most economical and efficient way, and probably the only feasible way. Because the industry is not going through a great phase either. They have a lot of financial issues in the last 2 years. They shift away from prioritizing CMT, and so that's another issue. So thank you, and we can discuss any of the points. Thank you. Yes, Jida.
One of the I'm part of the IMC Diversity Committee.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of work how we put out data that is relevant across countries, and that's been challenging. And also, and I think this is where the patient organisations are really important, is that we think about communities within our different countries who actually we're not seeing in our specialist centres. Because I think we have to be careful that we're not going to be increasing problem of health inequalities in some of our the demographics of our different countries and our populations. And been doing a piece of work in the UK where I've been co-designing a recruitment strategy for people with rare neuromuscular diseases who come from minority backgrounds, as in the UK, from different communities, I'm potentially making them very different. Say what are the issues that when I looked at my research cohort, it was 97% white British. And that's in London. London has got huge diversity. Why are people not engaging in research? And we were at that meeting, so we heard that 90% of global DNA data is all from European origins.
Yeah.
So, we're all diverse. France is very diverse. It's a bit diverse.
All countries are now.
And what's happened so far in what I've been doing in these amazing workshops, I've learned so much. I'm from a minority community, and what's different is things like how in some communities it's not about the individual, it's about meeting the elders, giving individual permission to be involved, and actually how you have as well. And when people get information from trust as well. Some communities find the bullshit is underdone because of both clothing industry, etc. So I wanted to make this point yesterday, but we ran out of time at the end of the day. But it's about us, as a federation now, and as the federation of the groups, to make sure that when we're doing these, with everything you said about how to mobilise, that we remember to take everybody with us, really, so everybody gets the opportunity to move on live.
I think we should take everybody with us within our countries, but also in other countries that are completely not within this loop. Yes, it's important because we miss a lot of information and we miss out on a lot of patients at the end of the day.
The way we're trying to collect the category data, we're still refining it, but I'm sure that's something as the INC group that we want to be able to share.
Trying to get standardization around the way we collect any data is a challenge, but I think the more we have conversations like this, if the IMC is looking at reviewing how it collects demographic data, well, then I go, how do you ask it? You'll ask it the same way. Well, just get on board with it as much as we can, and what's the co-creation and the ability to get. I just wanted to add real patient names to what Cleopas has presented. That 4C task force is Todd Hawpole and Mary Louie. So I met Todd Hawpole's daughter at camp last year in Pennsylvania, and they are a wonderful family.
Yeah.
And I spent time with them at camp. I heard about her condition, met with her parents when they picked her up. And 4C Task Force is a really lovely Facebook group of 4C patients, and they're pulling them in from where they can. And we help to convene and connect them. So Gina Sweeney, who's one of my colleagues, many know Gina, is helping with that. They're not fundraising without support. They're being welcomed. Is how can we support you to fundraise for 4C? And we can help them with their fundraising, and we help convene meetings with Cleopas and Herman. And what's wonderful is their passion and enthusiasm is unrivaled, because they want to see 4C looked at in a very, very rare time. So they nag, they prod, they poke, they ask questions. And I know the 4C community better than a lot of other communities because of their activities. So I applaud. They're really excited that the office is sharing some further. And through that, we can co-create that research. They are driving it, they're asking for it, and they're helping to fund it. And I feel privileged that we can act as a vehicle to make that happen.
And they're welcoming people from every country. So I just think
they have reached out to people all over the world. I mean, I know people from Europe, and they are in contact with them. So I think that's the beauty of the social media. Also, they're connected everywhere now.
Because they're aware of the rarity of their disease and the drive and desire to reach out. So they're predominantly Facebook organized and how they bring people in.
I can see quite a few people I didn't know about it, so now we can that's what it's great to know about this. We can sign them.
And that's the most common of the rare ones. I can imagine the even less common ones. How important it is to connect worldwide.
Filippo, and then I think that
Yeah, just brief comments. Positively surprised and grateful to Cleopas because a neurologist, an excellent researcher, is talking about patient involvement. So that's great. Just a quick comments. probably flow inflammation might be an issue.
Yes.
So, for instance, I was surprised that CMT and MEAC study wasn't known. And so I would suggest that what about creating a newsletter, a mailing list group, I'll say, with the meeting participants to let the information use and things flow among each other. But of course, anyone can invite anyone else. It will be open to anyone, so it could be a channel of information.
I think that, yeah, I think this should be part of hopefully this CMT, European CMT Research Association. I think we need something more powerful at the European level that will, you know, have a more leading role in Europe, but also will be globally more active. I mean, that's how I see the role of CMT Federation, and I think it needs to take more active role. And I mean, there are examples from the US, and I mean, it's a different culture there, but we discussed it last night, but I think there is a lot of work to do for us, both the researchers and the patients in Europe.
Yeah, when you ask someone in the street, Duchenne dystrophy, oh yes, I know this patient from IFM, very rich amount, you know, CMT. So, you know, because we make mistakes also. We don't go to the TV, I don't know, to explain the most common disease. When I say common, it's the most common, you are sure? Yes, I'm sure. Many CMTs comparing to Duchenne, and you should take the lead for the television, the radio, just to speak about CMT, because my department, doctors, physio, they are free CMT, no? Just free CMT, it's common. So it's a common disease. Sometimes you know that they have it, sometimes you don't know if it's mild one. So I think you should take the lead, because the other association takes the lead to communicate about muscle dystrophy, etc. And CMT is the most common one. And in France, I don't know for the other countries,
everywhere,
we do not communicate enough on TV or radio for CMT.
It's also in TV and radio, you have, you know, people, things like Duchenne will sell more because it's more dramatic, is more, but, you know, when you hear from a CMT patient that every day I feel that something I could do, I lose it, and it's slow and it's killing me to just see that happening slowly. It's
different, you know?
Yes, it's a long, slow process, which is also very, yeah. So I think patients will take the lead for awareness, and we go with you.
Yeah, we can want to, you know, because I think that it's a matter of presentation.
Yeah.
You can draw the attention, just how to present it. If you know it's stable disease, nobody will hear you, you know?
Yeah.
There is some, you have to communicate.
We need patient stories.
Just a very, very important, because now a lot of doctors till now confusion with between Charcot and Charcot-Marie-Tooth.
Yes.
So we should start by that. Even the doctors, after all the public, you're right. There is a campaign in Europe, you know, CMT awareness with CMT, the CMTF Federation. It's we are in this movement, but it will be long and as you know, this is not the same culture about fundraising. It's very difficult.
Yes.
And there is a lot of differences between all the countries in Europe. This is one of the difficulties too. But it's possible. I'm sure that it will be more difficult than in US. But we need to take this way too.
Well, if in Europe we have to depend more on government funding for research, then we have to lobby there. If we cannot fundraise the same way CMT Association does in the US, because there is philanthropy there, and we don't have it as pronounced in Europe, I think we have to push where we have a chance. And there is now a European partnership for rare diseases, and some of the ideas that I shared are part of this strategy of the European partnership, and we have to lobby that they also give money for diseases like CMT. They will involve the patient associations, they will involve the ERNs. So that's going to be the future for the funding in Europe.
So there should see Charcot-Marie-Tooth.
Yes.
We need to start the pump with awareness and
Yes.
the money. With money, it's easier to make awareness.
Okay, speaking.
Advocacy groups spend a lot of time on awareness raising, and there's a full awareness months in Europe and UK and US to really put a massive amount of effort into how we raise awareness and fly the flag. Patient stories is always key.
I mean, you have regular family meetings every year. We could do something like that in Europe also.
By the different.
Yeah, this is very useful.
There's walks, there's cycles, there's a huge swathe of opportunities to raise awareness and funds. And yes, philanthropy is different in the US. I mean, I'm a privileged position. I'm based in the UK, but working with a US nonprofit, philanthropy is astounding. If I do a same event in the UK that was run in the US, I just can't believe the deep pockets. So it is different, but I don't think that stops it.
No.
There's a huge patient base in Europe. And if all those patients will mobilize towards a direction, then I think they would get on board, because the UK CMT, so each association separately manages to raise some funds and support some research. I think collaboratively with Europe, you'd have the same volume.
Of course, yes. There is one question back there.
This is the last question.
Yes.
In funding, etc. How much, probably the US are more involved in what relevant outcome measures for the patients for protocol development and lobbying at the regulator, etc. So how is that organized at a more global level?
Listen, do you want to answer this? They ask about the US and you're the representative of the.
You're probably more involved in.
From a regulatory standpoint, you're talking
From well, let's say clinical trial involvement, protocol, outcome measures that are important to the patients more than to the industry, you know, that's.
So we have a patient registry. We're working a lot on natural history and clinical trial development using a mobile app, because we believe that seeing the patient visually is going to make more of an impact, both on progression and improvement. And what we've done is we work very closely with the FDA and have their input on the development of what we do. So, you know, as we talk throughout the day, I would be more than happy to share what we've done and what works with our patient registry. It's taken a long time to get where we are today. We've had at least 3 different platforms, and we finally came to terms with working with a third party that specializes just on this type of work. And so we have a lot of resources, both manpower and funding that goes into that. And we've built the infrastructure where we can work with anybody in almost any country. So it's really exciting stuff. Globally it's challenging. I think in Europe it's true. The philanthropy, it's almost like people want to trump each other. If one, they always say like Philadelphia is like a mini New York. New York is very philanthropic. That's where we're based. So philanthropists like to outdo other philanthropists. It's very interesting. So we have that going for us. But
To be more collaboration at some global level.
yeah, and I was saying like in Israel, especially in New York, there's all these Jewish community funds. They want to give money to Israel. So tapping into the CMT advocacy groups that have resources with people that are not really American, they live there. They want to see money go into their country too. So I think there are things we can do to leverage those type of funds that are in the US into these countries here. So
Your needs to step out of it. This involvement.
So I hope I answered your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Hey, Nicolas. Nicolas.
No.
Sorry, I don't have the presentation, so I discuss. So anyway, I mean, I saw a lot of things in the morning. You want to remove it? Thank you very much for the invitation, even if I didn't have a presentation. So yeah, it was really nice. So yeah, but yeah, actually, Cleopa present a lot of things, so it was really nice. So actually, so maybe some people do not know me. I'm a scientist. I'm French scientist, so I'm specialist of peripheral nerve and myelin. I did like a 20 years career in science, and then 2 years ago, I decided to move to try to help to develop a therapy for the CMT disease. Why? Because so I took the time at the beginning to look a little bit all around how it's works, how we can make a therapy for this disease. So I know that as a scientist, you can develop a mouse model, you can test some ideas in mouse models. It's really nice, but then how you can go further than that, okay? And this starts to be complicated because then of course you have the clinician that are able to provide some of the answers, some of the questions, but still they don't put the therapy into the patient. And actually, I realized that nobody was doing that actually, because when you look at the industry, they don't also the way it's worked now that they don't develop they still develop their own drugs and their own approach, but for rare disease, actually, they rely on the let's not at the academy, but let's on the biotech field. Biotech field is something different. Biotech field is something like small companies that take ideas from the academia or from clinic or from physician, and then they transform it in order that is fitting the industry system. So they're in the middle, okay? So it's relatively new actually. So of course you had biotech for a long time, but the system has been really developed with increasing the field of biotech really recently, let's say in the 10 last year. So it's a reason why at the end I decided that yeah, I had to do a biotech. I had to work in the biotech field if I wanted to bring that to the people. And so it's not an easy it's not an easy thing to do. I have to tell you, I've been working for that for 4 years now. And so actually, so reason why we have to change this neurologist. I'm not a neurologist anymore. I'm not a neurobiologist anymore. I am something that is difficult to characterize now. But anyway, what I have the feeling I have is that, and this we have to be result driven. Okay. So at the end, you say what you want to reach as a result. And then you come from the end, you say, okay, I want to have that. And to reach this point, what do I have to do? Coming back. Okay? Because often we go as a scientist, really often we go about, oh, I like this, and then I start to work on this, but you lose the objective. So we have to keep focus on the objective. So what is the objective? But it's a question I ask you. I'm not going to answer.
Find a cure.
Find a cure.
Yes.
But what does that mean, find a cure?
I won't do the job.
No, but for example, what
Many objectives, so it depends on, yes, we have many. Because I think we want to raise awareness, to identify CMT types, to make it available and accessible, to make a global community, so it's different. But yes, at the end of the day, cure is a vision.
Stabilize.
It's not
Stabilize.
it's not a goal. It's a goal, right? But if we're talking about objectives, and it should be specific and measurable and achievable. So if I say cure, I would go to the end of the things, and then before that, I need to understand what are the main objectives in order to get me there.
So what is the final objective? Because you say a lot of things. Okay, find it clear. Okay. What is your
But
objective?
for me, not for now, for me, just for a patient like you, just if I can stabilize the patient, then I will be very happy. If it doesn't go well.
Stop the problem.
Stop the patient, you know, just stabilize, you know.
You're right.
It's different, perhaps in 10 years, we can catch some patient, newborn patient, detected CMT from I don't know, from CMT whatever you want, and perhaps have a drug which completely cures the disease. Although perhaps it's in the when you're in the pregnant woman, the problem is already there, you know. So it's difficult.
Okay, no,
People say,
finding
just
the
stop.
cure. Tanya, finding the cure. You can have a cure that cure all the people. They don't have let me talk. But you have also a cure like to say, okay, it's going to stabilize the patient. At the end, it's the same objective. You need to have some kind of cure for the patient, whether it's really high level cure or low level cure, whatever.
No, I don't like them cure, just stabilize, you
Okay.
know, because there's some.
Let's take okay. So at the end, you need to have At the end, what do you need? You need to have something on the market that the people can buy and get treated with. Okay, this is what you want.
Yes.
Okay. Then so you have to see that. You have to say, okay, this is the objective. Okay, and then you come backward. How does that happen? This is on the market. So basically, it means someone has to request a market authorization from the FDA. So who is doing that?
Many pharmaceutical laboratories.
Right. Pharma or biotech, not a
Sometimes.
Okay.
Regulatory, you need a whole army of people.
Yes. So basically, it's an industry that's going to put it on the market.
Biotech sells for the industry.
Okay. Biotech, pharma, this is the industry. Okay. So it's most of the time it's this. Okay, you can always find some particularities, maybe some in some cases we have associations that have done it, maybe some. But in overall, like 99%, it's the industry that is going to put it on the market. So at the end, you say, okay, how does the industry put it on the market? So you have to go through clinical trial, right? But not only that, the industry is going to put it on the market if they, at the end, it's an industry is not like an association. The industry is looking for money, right? But you cannot forget that at the end it's really important for them. Of course, they may want to look for a lot of money. They may want to look a little bit less money. It depends of how much money they look. Anyway, they will have to reimburse the investment at least. Okay, which makes sense. So then at the end you have to figure out how do they make money? They make money when they sell it. You don't pay. Who is paying?
But it depends. Sometimes pay.
Yes, it depends.
Yeah, but
No, in France we don't pay, but we
But
pay
in France,
for.
it depends. Depends.
most of the time it's not you. It's health insurance, right?
Yeah, most of the-
Yes.
Most of the time. You can imagine that one day we will pay individually, but it will be really bad for the society because people that cannot pay, they don't get it, right? So the health insurance at the end pays for it. So so each time you have an actors like this, they have their own incentives, their own way to think. What I'm going to tell you is that if you have to look at what is the objective at the end and go backward, then at one point, as an association, if you want to make that happen, you have to understand how they think, these people. Okay? So what is missing is specialist meeting with people from the industry, at least, that they can explain to us how it's going to work, how it's going to be in the market one day. Okay? So it's what I'm feeling a little bit annoyed because at the end, you know that everything is going to be the last step is going to be everything because you can do a lot before that last step. You can spend a lot of money. But if you don't pass to that last step, then nothing will happen. So at one point, you have to understand how it occurs and how it happens, and we need to know expert. I'm not an expert. I cannot tell you. Well, I know a little bit now, but not enough. Okay, so we really need to have this kind of expert also inside the association or around this association, but you can understand how it works at the end, right? So I was going to start because I started the presentation, but I didn't finish it. But I was thinking about how I can say, not mobilizing the patient, because mobilizing the patient means that we, as scientists, as clinicians, and we need the patient. We have to move them, like mobilizing a resource. I don't see that for patient association. I see that the patient association has to be can be above that. So the patient association should need, we as scientists and clinicians, we should be the resource for patient association, not the reverse. Right? So in a way, you can be at the center because you are, and then you could move forward people as mobilizing the resources we are, not the reverse. Because otherwise, clinicians, they are all way to think of the disease. Scientists, we have our own way to think the disease. So of course, we can mobilize the resources of the patient for our own need. But at the end, it's not the final. Scientists and clinicians, they don't think about the final reaching that drug on the market or therapy on the market. So at the end, I believe that the patient association are people that can think the future. They can think what we are going to be able to do at the end. It's not, physicians and scientists are not going to do that. Okay, so if someone else has to do it. Okay, I think patient association they can do that because their objective is exactly this one. It's not the objective of scientists. As a scientist, what is our job? Well, my job, still my job, is to publish paper, do science, right? So we don't, I mean, our goal, yes, I like to have a therapy at the end of the market, but this is not my main goal.
When you have patients, many patients CMT, there are some rich patients, and some patients who know someone who is very, I don't know, ministry or something like that, and you can mobilize these specific people to give some funding for you or scientists or something like that, It's all that.
Patient associations are not money. No, I don't think so. They can give money. They can give money, but they are not money. Right?
Perhaps I'm going to Bercy. This is the best money. It's here in Paris, I'm going in December in Bercy to present CMT. What is CMT? Just for this, who have the money. Bercy is a ministry for economy here in France.
The money
is there. The money is there. So I'm going to present something for CMT for these people in Bercy. Just to to explain what is a disease, that is a common disease, and perhaps in the room will be some CMT, perhaps it's not so rare. So just to explain and to say that we need money for this research, for the all of this.
This is the French disease. The French people believe that all the money is in the state, but that's not true. Okay, so we are not going to rely on the state to give us money, and they don't have enough money to put something on the market. No, the money is in the economy, not in the state. So we have to think differently in France. We have to think about how we are going to make industry that is strong enough to support what you want to reach. Not the state. It's not going to happen, and I know it's a big problem in France, but big problem usually in Europe. So at one point, we have to change the state of mind. And as I said, clinicians and scientists, they don't have the same objective. And our objective is not to be on the market. This is the objective of the association. So you have to shift the mindset and you have to say, no, we are the resource for you to reach your goal. Okay? So So it's a reason why you have to be aware of what you need to do that. You need to have resources from the scientists, you need to have resources from the clinician, because I have seen a lot of flow in the process of developing this therapy. So sometimes, for example, scientists, they develop therapies that are really working really well in mice. It's like 90% of what works in mice doesn't work in humans. So they think about really beautiful stuff, and then this is, that is, the industry is never going to reach the market because this cannot just work. Okay, so you can give a lot of money to scientists; they are going to develop plenty of good ideas, but on mice, and then in association, you have to push them to go further than mice, farther. Okay, it's the same for clinicians. I love our clinicians find really nice, but sometimes they develop techniques that is going to be really difficult to be used for clinical development. So, for example, I know MRI is really nice. Okay, I love the technique and developing fast, and people are expert of that. But you know that MRI is expensive. Cleopatra, it's expensive. Yeah, it's expensive. Yes. For you, because when you develop it, when you develop it in an hospital, then the physician, the clinician, they work together. Okay, they collaborate to make paper. Why? Does not cost a lot of money. But when you want to do a clinical trial, then the industry has to pay for this for the clinician. And this makes sense. It's normal. But then MRI start to be really expensive because.
But if it is reliable, I think it will be good because now we
it's not enough to be reliable.
Good outcome measure.
No, think about industry.
I think it's good balance. I think if MRI can show progression or lack of progression within a 12-month period versus where we were, which is you might need a 6-year trial, it's a lot of money saved. So it balances. I mean, we won't be MRIing every patient who takes the drug. It's the people in the trial to show proof of concept and efficacy in a short enough amount of time to attract more investment. So yes, MRI isn't the cheapest biomarker and outcome assessment in the world, but it shortens the clinical trial time significantly, which saves massive amounts of money.
Exactly.
So it's a balance.
That may be true. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Now, how do you know it? How do you know it? How do you know it?
I've been trying. It's one thing. Have a nice chat with Mary Riley about it.
No, it's a reason why you need experts of the industry that are going to tell you whether it makes sense or not financially, because at the end, it's all what matters for them. So you may be right. You may be right. Maybe MRI is going to be save money for the industry, and will say, I want to use it.
It's a palette and a platform, and the work on developing effective biomarkers for short clinical trials is still, I think it's still a big driving force in the research that's been funded for CMT.
Okay, but it has to be developed thinking about what the industry is going to do with that, because then you can develop plenty of biomarkers that are not useful at the end. So maybe MRI is right, maybe MRI is a good way, but still I don't know. And I'm not sure everyone knows yet. Right. Okay.
There's one group that's not been discussed here, and that's therapists' expectations. And what therapists are very good at is creating measures that are important to people living with the condition, which is what Mel presented yesterday. Also, we're delivering care for people now. So my colleague Bracken here, she's an orthotist, she can make a difference to somebody's mobility within one session. So, and I challenge anybody who's creating therapeutics to have the effect sizes that we're seeing in rehabilitation trials, because I run these rehabilitation trials, yeah?
Right.
And what we are finding is that we can't get commercial funding for our studies. We're struggling even to get government-based funding. So the RxScience works, because we have just spent 9 months putting in a big application, something that's hard. Because I can't go, and the patient charities You know, there's limited funding and everybody is looking at, but we also need to make sure that we are still working and evaluating interventions that help people to live well with the condition out. And that psychological support, there's a lot of question on psychology, CMT, as well as rehabilitation interventions that allied health professionals, orthotists, OTs, physiotherapists are all involved with. There just seems to be we're forgotten, and actually we're making a difference now.
I think on that, when we look at stabilising a patient, I think that's my goal as an orthotist is, can I get stability of quality of life? While there may be disease progression, progression within weakness, can I increase the support I can give to a patient so they can achieve the same year on year on year, and continue to access their environment and their community and their quality of life. And while it isn't a medicine, like a medical cure, and while the muscle fibers are still changing and MRI will still show progression, when you look at the outcomes for somebody's happiness, there's a huge impact that actually somebody can still take their children to school every year and then they're still able to function. And it isn't the big end of the road cure, the thing at the end to say, actually, have we beaten CMT? But it feels like it's something that is today, that's the now goal. And I think exactly as he said, I think therapists can play a massive part in that in terms of accessing lots of patients and finding out from them what's important that needs addressing.
And I think the stabilisation, the drug stabilise and prevent progression, people still have mental impairment, so we still need to be able to support that. And also the some interventions that have been developed, like some of the anti-myostatin inhibitors, those research designs, they showed an increase in muscle mass, but there was no rehabilitation with that. And like in my talk yesterday, you don't just peripheral changes don't increase function. It needs to be a rehabilitation, needs to be neuromuscular coordination central as well. So it's not forgetting, another arm in these studies that actually otherwise it could be negative trials and our patients are missing out. What could be a beautiful intervention like combined with rehabilitation.
And the two are not mutually exclusive. I think how much more effective would they be done together?
Yeah, exactly that.
We should work on both fronts.
But I think there's so few of us doing this work,
and to get funding is so hard.
It is, but it's invited us to the table in these research designs. Those of us who do research, got experience, but there's so few of us. We're small and I give it. Yeah, but it's
Federation for scoliosis, somebody solves everything.
As well, we've got representation straight across UK. But it'd be great.
We can send them to you to get trained.
They can come. I'll come out.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.